at some point. So we're gonna start with section 21, even though we all have notes on ourselves, we don't have any. So it should go quick in the matters. Yes.
And that's on the copy as well.
Yeah, we took those, and then when I went back in to look at them, they weren't there. And I checked to make sure I hadn't put them on the other one, and I had done on the copy, so I don't know whether, I don't know what happened actually. All I know is I was typing that.
It's weird to Google that. Say on
On, so, anyway, so that's why we decided to do 21 again.
Either that or we all lost our minds and we never checked it out.
Yeah, it was group stereo.
And has everyone checked in? Okay. So let's go around the table and start with you and go reverse clockwise direction.
James Clevenger.
How are you doing? How are you showing up?
I'm drowning,
Yeah.
but I love it.
I feel the Judy Hammond, community member, I don't know what else, operated the City Animal Center. So the two other committees. And then I am 24/7 still living my daughter. But I am finding reasons to honor her by keeping on. So yeah.
Jan Christensen, budget committee member, or whatever the title is. And here, of course, I'm getting spread a little thin. I'm not as thin as you must be, but yeah, I have to stop volunteering at some point. But I'm showing up good today. I'm here. Jerry Reed. And I am here. Got my daughter out of ballet class and that took extra time because she wanted to do it in bottle drop. She left it all over the floor. I needed to clean it up. So we're having a great day. So I'm here and she is with her dad at T-ball because I'm taking a break doing something useful. It isn't gonna drive me totally crazy.
Chris Francesca, happy to be here. And before being here, I was in the dirt, and I even like that better. Pretty much all the day, pulling weights and getting ready to plant. So
Nice day.
Before the heat comes.
Right. Kathy Olston, let's see what for it. So today was carpentry and lawn mowing day. And I totally forgot this meeting was happening until 5:30 when the reminder popped up. Just about. So, if I'm not fast.
And I'm doing well. Not feeling good. I've been here now over a year in Oak Ridge, and the beauty still strikes me the same way as it does when I first set foot in here in this town around 6 years ago, and kept coming up here to get to for picnics and whatnot. And I find myself wondering, is this ever going to wear off at all? It is astounding. I feel so blessed to be alive in with you all and in this space.
When Oak Ridge chooses you, she doesn't.
Sure, I think there's magnets in the water and it's strong. I've been out of this town a good 15 times and keep moving back.
I'm Sue. Today was, I've been working on a grant for the a feasibility study to convert the trestle. So that just had my eyes spinning in circles, but and it was inspired to work outside today, and that was there. So. Yeah, good.
Well, I'm Dawn, and
I am on a lot of committees, you pointed out, but, I had some stress today that gave me a headache, but it's, I put some aspirin and it's starting to go away now, which is good. Otherwise, I'm really good. So.
So we're on 21. I mean, I was looking to see indeed if there were.
If I might,
They're like. They're not.
The only thing that it's safe because it's safe that. And I did look at other documents, but I didn't find it, so.
So who wants to read?
I'll start.
Great.
Section 21, city administrator, subsection 1, the city administrator is the administrative head of the city government.
Oh, I think we have a little discussion.
Yep, if you just any questions, comments about what that means.
I think that one's really something.
I clean up my student colleague.
And I'll read the next one too.
Okay.
The administrator shall be appointed and removed as provided in section 10 hereof. The appointment shall be without regard to political considerations and solely on the basis of administrative qualifications. And when they refer to section 10 hereof, they mean section 10 from before, not subsection 10. FYI. So I was reading subsection 10 on the next day, and I'm like, what, this has nothing to do with it.
Oh, right, it's the previous.
It's the other
section.
officers, additional officers, and city shall be.
Yeah.
How you get the job.
Looks good to me.
I have a comment.
Yes.
At one point, we were talking about using plain language, and for me, that section 10 here of the super. So. So the question is, do we need to say here? No. Is that? So what is the question, whether or not?
Here of meaning in this document.
Use the word hereof.
Next question.
Trudy's up.
So section 3, the administrator need not reside in the city or the state when appointed. What?
When
Oh, really?
appointed,
When appointed?
When being the operative word.
Yes. Yeah, when they're hired, and then they would have to and live
Oh.
here. Yeah, but they don't have to be from here.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant Joe Blow from King Kong County Forest could come in.
No, it's when Kevin Irvin got to be city administrator, he was from somewhere else.
Like Brian was.
Slide didn't say.
And Brian also.
Yeah.
Kevin Irvin was the city administrator.
Yeah.
For a little bit, I think it was the administrator, this I've seen a couple documents.
Yeah.
But I mean.
he was
It's
still,
not stating that they have to live here once they're hired, though, is that?
And that-
They live anywhere else?
Well, I think it's in the next, in number 5.
Okay.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Oh, here, subsection 3.
But should,
I guess I would
Well,
have,
because city councilors have to live in the city before they are voted in, they have to
yeah,
be residents,
every year.
Where you can read.
right? The city administrator.
Doesn't have to be.
And that just has to be within a certain mileage, probably.
No. VA can be hired from Canada for money.
I know, but I mean, once they're hired,
Oh,
but like Kevin lived in West Burr, but worked for city administrator. It was in the general area, not in city limits.
Yeah, I mean, if a person wanted to commute, it's a paid job, so it's. Probably not.
You just go to the shelf and all those meetings and all the times. Yes, they would for any other job.
And most courts have said residency requirements are illegal. It's definitely, there's some exceptions to that. It's
They're
like
illegal?
cops in New York City can't live in New York City. They can't live in Aspen, Colorado. They can afford a $10 million house, just as an example. Yeah. They used to require that.
Or
Upon accepting the appointment, the administrator shall furnish the city a bond in an amount with a surety approved by the council. The city shall pay the bond premium.
My question is, do we still need the bond? Because everyone laughs at us when we tell them we are still bonding people because our insurance coverage covers the same coverage.
the same thing. That's, I believe that was a discussion that Ryan also had with the insurance company and this bond. It's. Superfluous. Yeah.
superfluous for coverage. Is it also superfluous for function, as the conversation we've had before as well? Because a bond is something that a citizen who believes that the administrator is not fulfilling his function, that he's in derelict in duty, and can have pulled,
Can have the bond
can
pulled.
have the bond pulled. And that prevents the administrator from basically fulfilling the
Duties.
duties.
Yeah, I know that's.
So by the court and then the city pays for the court costs.
Will allow citizen process to pause duties of administrator. By Roland.
So a bond can, so I didn't notice, so. So when we initially, when the chart was initially done, I would assume, since we weren't there, that a bond was asked. Not merely for that section, but because insurance didn't cover those.
Okay, it's not something stupid.
But nowhere in here does it say we need to have insurance.
Because it didn't exist.
Because it didn't exist at that time. Now it exists. And most insurance companies who insure municipalities say you don't need a bond. So what would be the purpose of having an action such as a citizen saying, I don't think you're doing your job, I'm going to pull your bond.
Mess with the city.
Well, and that's. Is there a different way for a citizen who has a grievance or believes a city administrator is a citizen, not a council member, and has a grievance and believes that that city administrator isn't doing their job for them to express that and get action?
Public comments.
Well, wouldn't it be through the complaint process,
So I would
which
say.
would go to council because we're their boss?
So there is a way, other than pulling the bond, to perform the same function.
It's not the same function.
Okay, explain why it's not the same function to you.
Let's say that James, I said, you're derelict, you're not doing X, Y, Z. I wouldn't know, but, let's say I've got this bee in my bonnet. If I go and pull your bond, I can notify this, it's my impression, I can notify the city council, your duties stop. Your capacity to fulfill those duties stops under the city charter.
That's curious, because to me, the council hires the city administrator.
Right.
The council reviews the city administrator, and the council can dismiss the city administrator.
Yes.
And that is I think that's important, because there has to be a human resources link in there somehow, that you can't just arbitrarily, you have to follow certain rules. If you pull a bond, you are not following any rules that have to do with the state of Oregon or human resources.
It's just like people who get pissed off at a judge Because they lost their case and they put a lien on their house or their car, and it's bullshit. But it's just a hassle, and of course, it'll, get it cleared up, but
I would say that this is archaic.
happens a lot.
Language, and it's intent.
It's part of that, what's that group that doesn't believe in the government? Common citizen. They don't believe in the government, they do needs.
Oh, he said those citizens that don't believe in government, like,
So if you're absolutely sure that a security bond can be pulled and they can't work,
Absolutely sure no. It's my impression that, to hold a bond, you have to stand it, you have to have some grievance that city administrator, in this case, city administrator's dereliction of duty has cost me, has made it where I'm not able to do X, Y, Z in the city.
Right, city administrator won't get rid of the RV that homeless people are living in front of my house. I'm really pissed off about it.
So.
and it's causing me emotional and mental damage.
Okay, so the city administrator has authority over all hired administrators or all hired employees, but not elected employees, correct?
elected officials
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you, elected officials.
or the municipal judge.
So if I said the city planner did not approve my permit, therefore I'm gonna pull your bond. Because I think what he did was outside he did it wrong, he made a bad decision. Now I'm gonna do that. So it seems to me that what this really is just a way to be assholes.
But in the law, wouldn't somebody have to prove the negligence of the?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have, well, eventually you have to prove it, but you can sue anybody who wants.
And then
Same
just
thing.
drag it out.
Yeah, you can put a lien on it, all of our houses if you want to. Yeah.
And it's instead in place for whatever language. is proposed.
Okay, we're gonna start this. I would recommend it, interrogated for that's on the thing, right?
Do we still need to do the thought?
Your question, is this language necessary? This language, another question, does this language set up the city to be vulnerable to citizen actions that the city is not left vulnerable to?
That's shut down the city.
Yeah, if you think we're bad now, just wait.
Okay, got it. So there's. I got it. Okay.
Okay,
And could we also add in there a different question that should we consider verbiage around insurance coverage?
But then how far do we go? Do we have something else? And the city needs to insure the vehicles, and the city needs to insure its property, and the city needs to insure. I'm just saying,
Whose property, yours?
city's property. Because the
Oh,
charge.
no, this section is only
No,
regarding.
I know that. I'm just gonna, I don't know how deep we wanna go.
You're fishing.
he's rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This isn't the time for arguing about it.
Take your turning hand off. No. Don't ever.
Well, we're gonna already got it mentioned.
Yeah.
No, that's what it would be, that's discord. Your
Double down.
rhetoric and whatnot. It's conversation.
Yeah.
So we on the 5?
Question I would have about 1 through 4 is whether it would be permissible under the charter for the city administrator position to be occupied by 2 people. So currently, the way that this is written, their job sharing is precluded.
Well, a lot of them have been. Job sharing has been voted. Okay,
So
so where am I putting that under what time?
you can put under 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Okay. From all that.
Do we want to preclude job sharing for the city administrator?
Do we have that means any other job that you have?
Any other job that's not chartered. It's not in the city charter, the city administrator can alter those requirements.
got it, I got it.
If this is charter, then the council cannot alter those charter requirements.
Got it.
For me, anyone? All right, bye.
Within 6 consecutive months after a vacancy occurs in the office of administrator, the council shall fill the vacancy by appointment.
My question on this one is, isn't that superfluous, or the same thing as subsection 9, which we will get to. Subsection 9 says basically the same thing.
Oh, yeah. And now when you said, right?
Yeah, subsection.
Actually, I think it's different. The one is saying that within 6 months, we need to have a new city administrator hired, appointed.
Mhm.
And mine is saying that when there is no city administrator, like when they resign or leave permanently or they become disabled or whatever, that we need to fill the role with a pro tem until one is hired.
Right, but then it says no person may be administrator pro tem more than 6 consecutive months.
Because they want your.
Right, because we have to have a hearing.
Right, but isn't that kind
I
of, sorry,
guess-
Margin.
No, I see.
You could take care of 9 with successive pro temps. And let's still not be in compliance with 6 or further with 5.
Yeah.
Definite higher.
It's keeping us,
Yeah,
I think the two of them together are keeping us from having pro temps forever.
there has to be certain going on. No. My comment on this would be, again, the word shall, which constantly comes up because we don't use shall, may, will, in the ways that we did before. So it should, I believe that, we should consider council shall, make that clearer, and that means, must.
Does it make sense to change councils?
Everywhere. And do we want, would we want to consider adding the word permanent? Before the word fit. Because technically the council must fill the vacancy by appointment, so 1 pro tem, 1 pro tem, 1 pro tem.
The permanent's like forever.
Right, so that's what I'm, well,
Really.
permanent, you still get fired and
What did you say to add for permanent?
before the word fill. The council
The council
shall,
must permanently fill the vacancy by appointment.
something, some language to make it clear that you can't just appoint pro tem for 6 months, another pro tem for 6 months, another pro tem for 6 months. Because the council could fill the vacancy with a pro tem appointment for 6 months, then do it again and again and again.
And so the company doing, they doing that, working with that, and they haven't found a hire yet. But the charter says you have to, so then do you kind of tie the hiring process up when you do that bit, I think. And I see what you're saying is to prevent the ongoing. And I don't know that that's ever happened, but it's supposed to.
Must to the best of their abilities permanently,
But to the best of their ability.
because life sucks sometimes.
I like that.
Maybe we should question whether it should say the council will hire a new city administrator.
For the council must upon something like hire, fill the vacancy by appointment. By hiring appointment.
So the questions that we're trying to address, right, are, how can we be clear that the appointment is of a pro tem? How can we be clear that this is an obligation of the council? And how can we account for best faith efforts of the council?
Did we establish whether the administrator has to be a resident after or?
Currently, there's
We haven't
not.
come across anything yet.
Alright.
We're still in administrative.
It's not a requirement here, and I think we all agree that.
Really?
As long as they show up.
Because if you're in council.
Councils are voted for elected position, not a paid position. So like, you can live here and work in Medina, if you want, and so why couldn't a city administrator live in Medina?
But it's, don't you like have you're wearing a lot of hats and. It just doesn't seem like he could live in Eugene and do his job.
But that's up to him.
Yeah. Right. But I think the city might suffer.
Or what if he tried to live in Eckerd?
Or, oh, well, maybe within a range.
Or,
Well,
or,
Scott, maybe, but not as bad.
Or not done for him, the average.
Or, yeah,
Living up Hill Street.
Yeah, I would like to see our-
One time you-
boundaries expand.
So where are we? Yeah, I mean,
We didn't have somebody that.
I'd say within an hour's drive, but there is something.
But no, I can see what you're saying, because if we didn't have somebody that was as dedicated as him to travel to the end of the earth for this city, I could see where I would be concerned about how far they get.
Yeah.
but again, most courts, when stuff gets litigated, like, so those are legal.
I would like me to record this conversation since I'm not sure what it's exactly on yet.
So, one way to ask that question would be, is it legal to require, to have a residency requirement for the city administrator? Whether within the city or within a certain radius of the city.
So for example, we used to require that of all police and firefighters. It's deemed illegal, the residence requirement is illegal, but what we can do is require them while they're on duty. To be within 30 minute response time. While on duty. But we can't tell them where they have to be a resident. So in other words, they could like, stay at a friend's house or get an apartment here, but their real house is in Eugene. And they're okay, as long as their response time and on duty is 30. But
A long time.
All right, six.
The administrator shall attend all council meetings unless excused by the council or mayor.
Any questions on 6A?
yes, what is the council mean? So if I want to take vacation, I need to give either the mayor's permission or the other 6 council. Or is it the majority of council?
Good questions.
Go with the one that's gonna let you do it. I mean, really,
Yeah.
I mean, it does say or. Not and or.
That's a really good point, James. I think it should be reduced to one or the other. I mean, should we consider reducing it?
So. If that,
The mayor hires and fires, right? So he's the council has to do it along with.
Everything that gets done has to be a majority of the council approving it. And then typically the verbiage states that the mayor does the action with council approval. So always there has to be a majority.
So our question is, do we need to further define council? Second question is. Do we need to have it? The council or mayor? Or one, yeah, is that what you think?
That's what I was thinking. I mean, I would say mayor or the mayor's absence, council president. I would hate for it to be something where like you had some kind of emergency that you needed to leave town for a week or two. And you had to call a council meeting together to get approval.
Yeah. Because it doesn't.
That would be ridiculous. It should be like,
I like that.
A notification.
By the mayor or council president, I like.
Yeah.
So could we?
Yeah.
Question.
well, it's true that. In the absence of a mayor, the council president acts as a mayor, so we probably don't even need to define that, just say mayor. But if the mayor wasn't there. it Would automatically roll with the president.
True. I'd like to. Personally, like that too, just in case.
One person.
Hates me.
What if the mayor? What if the mayor is unavailable? What if mayor has gone on that backpacking trip and you can't get a hold of it, so it's just mayor. Then, you know, then the mayor should be informing the president of council that they are unacceptable. And then the president of the council should be doing it, but this is an excuse absence, and that's important because those are, we can't say you can't go. Because you're an employee and you have the right to take sick leave or vacation leave, but we do record absences to reflect on job performance. So, you know, it really is just one or the other, as long as someone knows that it's recorded to council.
So does that mean that the reason being could be not acceptable and deemed as an unexcused,
No,
even though
No.
there was a
And
notification?
it could be a mental health difference.
And the absence would be if, like, if the city administrator just didn't show up, just didn't
Okay.
show up, no one knew what.
Okay.
In which case they'd be calling all over the place trying to figure out where the heck he was, because why would he ever do that?
Yeah, my percent would be.
Is he okay?
Couple down 58, make sure he's not in the ditch.
All right, 60.
It's a funny one.
Keep the council advised of the affairs and needs of the affairs and needs of the city. What?
Well, you know,
Like advised of the affairs and needs of the affairs and needs of the city. I think we have.
well, actually, if the affair was like, something is, there's a broken water pipe on School Street. The needs would be, staff and materials and supplies. And needs of the city would
Right,
often be a duplicate.
but it's,
All of that.
So you said issue instead of affairs.
I have no problem with affairs and neither is a problem with, there. Like,
yeah, it just sounds so.
It could be a conversation with another entity that is concerning something that's happening in Oak Ridge for the city's business.
So I think,
Business.
yeah. So I think what it's really saying is that not only does the council or the city expect the city administrator to report on any issue or affair, but also the ramification. What are the needs what needs to be taken care of for that issue? And how does this issue affect the city? So the whole ball of wax he's responsible for. Not just saying, hey, there's a broken pipe back there. No, and I don't know what you're gonna do with it.
So should the question be, remove the second statement of the affairs and needs and just keep it to read, keep the council advised of the affairs and needs of the city?
But
Should that?
How can we just keep it simple?
Explain it to every person.
I wrote a note on here that said admin needs to keep council informed of all city affairs and any information needed for clarification and follow through. It's just so that it happens, make sure it happens.
there you go.
So should that be such a thing?
Maybe repeat that and I'll type that in.
Yeah, but admin needs to keep council informed of all city affairs and any information needed for clarification and follow through.
Like that.
This is for Ridge, make that clear. That's the question.
That is weird, it's not.
He's typing while I'm typing. Shows up as a weird thing.
Oh.
It's like, this is-
Are we ready for the next one?
I was just editing that, so it's easy question format.
Yeah.
Great,
C.
so the administrator shall see that the provisions of all ordinances are administered to the satisfaction of the council.
My question is, should we add end resolutions?
It's not that written down. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
been around station we had resolutions and obligations. But I haven't. That's here.
I wanted to add obligations in the next one. I think obligations fits better in D. I think, in my opinion, C should stick to ordinances and resolutions.
What does provisions of all ordinances mean?
Um, each aspect,
Each,
each part,
each ordinance provides a specific compliance or expectation. I don't know what the right word would be for that, but
what they're trying to say is make sure that everything in this, and everything in the resolution is administered, not just, oh, I'm gonna hold my enforce hat of it.
I don't know what has to be.
I think that's the goal.
Okay, so this is explicitly seeking to remove the or remove from the city administrator any judgment of whether to enforce all or part of city ordinances.
They're not allowed to pick and choose which ones they do, they have to do them all. Wholeheartedly. Like when you get stopped by a cop and you were on 70, they're technically should give everybody that goes 70 a ticket, not say, well, why were you going so fast? And should I give you a little leeway today? Because your child was screaming in the back, had to go to the bathroom.
So I do have a comment about the difference between our ordinances and a resolution. So an ordinance is illegal. A resolution doesn't have to be illegal. It resolved that the city council thinks that my cross is amazing. So there's a difference between a resolution and an ordinance.
Totally agree, but I'm just maybe telling want the city administrator to administer both of them.
Yeah, because for example, a resolution, all committees are set by resolution.
This is true.
And we would want him to ensure that committees were,
Okay,
meeting and
okay,
whatever.
that makes sense.
I mean, there's also, like you said, Red Cross is amazing resolution.
Okay.
Ready for the next one?
I'm still sitting at this one. No.
Okay.
If you're thinking that are the words, the provisions of necessary. I would agree with you, I don't think that's good. I think it could simply say, see that all the ordinances and resolutions. Mr. Good said.
It's more concise.
Yeah.
Super.
The no, there's more that I'm sitting with.
Okay.
So, let's see. One question is satisfaction of the council. Is there and James, I'll just ask you directly, is there a sense that, I mean, if I were hired by a company, saying, you know, Matthew is gonna have to do this, to the satisfaction of the board, is pretty dang nebulous. I would definitely prefer some sense of, here is when I can know that, and when the council can know that, yes, indeed, I am fulfilling the terms of my employment. Having a sense of subjective satisfaction be the measure of your success at your job.
I don't know how else to do it, 'cause I mean. I serve with political council, they're the only ones that require me.
Except for that, I agree with what you're saying, I hadn't thought about it that way. An ordinance is an ordinance, and it should be clear in its writing exactly what it means and what the instruction is and what the intent is. It should not be open to interpretation. It should not be open to the whim of the council. As far as, well, you know, this year, let's just not worry about it. That shouldn't be that, and so that does leave the city administrator kind of hanging in the wind a little bit about, well, I really shouldn't enforce this ordinance fully, because I know the council this year isn't feeling very strong about that.
Yeah.
And that's not what our ordinances are intended to do. They're intended to be,
Who's on council, we do,
Yeah, so see that all ordinances and resolutions are administered to the compliance of the charter and agreement within the council. Something like,
Oh, what if there's a conflict?
or just. in
yeah,
compliance
just
with
see
the
the
charter.
administrator.
That's the job. Everything else is
period.
Yeah, we could do that.
To
In the end,
Yeah.
it will have to be the satisfaction of the council, but the council can say, you're not administering properly.
Well, that's what they do when they do reviews of you. They decide if you did things satisfactory.
Does that incomplete you with your thoughts if you just stop at our administration?
There's two things I'm sitting with, so this is one of them that I'm still sitting with this one. Urgency or administration. I'm fine with the sense that the council would get to say, you're administering these well enough. And you're right, that my concern is the flip. Of, yeah, I'll only be satisfied when you sort of only halfway administer this. If there's a majority on the council who feels that way, you can be in a bind. So I'm looking for language that, and I guess leaving offset to the satisfaction of the council would, remove some of that subjective element in the language. But is there a way we can say that it's the council is overseeing it, so you have to enforce it enough that the council is satisfied, not enforce it enough that the council is satisfied.
I think removing satisfaction of the council helps clarify the fact that the administrator's job is being laid out here. He shall, then another shall, he must, or whatever it is, we should be, but anyway. The administrator will, and he is to see that the ordinances, as they are written, are administered.
Mhm.
Period. It's once an ordinance has been voted and passed and entered in, then that is done. That is city ordinance.
So that becomes a law.
Well,
Is that kind of what it is?
not basic.
But the council's done with it and it moves on.
The council's done with it, is now the ordinance, it can't be changed unless council.
Well, it could be
changes it.
repealed and replaced, yeah.
Yeah, they
There
have.
was They an ordinance? Okay, so something like that. Then he'd have to make sure what the people are doing.
Once the ordinance, is the ordinance, once it's the way to do it anyway.
Okay.
They don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes care of one of the two. It's fun.
Question.
You always get good. We missed it.
We'll see that.
See that all terms of franchises, leases, contracts, permits, and privileges granted by the city are fulfilled, semicolon. Is that semicolon? No.
I'm still back on C.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
So we have the legislative function in ordinances. Where is the executive function?
Define exactly.
So is there any executive function of the municipal government, such as a declaration of the mayor or declaration of a, especially James, of a prior administrator, that it's standing policy because this has been declared administratively, this is how we're doing things. So let's say that you set those policies as an administrator, that's that executive function, and some new administrator comes in. There's a lot of potential, I mean, I would think a lot of potential for a new administrator to really upset the smooth functioning of a city by just tossing out all of those sorts of
Pre-established policy.
policies. So what I'm not seeing here is I'm not seeing any reference to policies set by a prior administrator until such a time that they can be changed in collaboration with the various organizations that the administrator is overseeing.
Well, I do know that policies are set by resolution, so it would have to go through the council if a city administrator wanted to toss out and say, well, we're not, you know, like policies on functions in the office.
But are all of them set by resolution?
Yes. I think really.
Well, there's policies and procedures that are established.
I mean, I haven't.
Yeah, the policies and procedures document that was established on some things, not on every item.
Maybe not,
Like the human resources have policies and procedures. Employee hiring, resources, all that has policies and procedures. And I believe that, you know, Brian went through and did that, and then it was presented to council, and council approved it. So that is, I don't know what we did with that.
You can't be all policies, because like the police department has their own policies that's set by the chief of police.
Right.
Yeah.
okay. That makes sense, and the fire department has their own policies, that's set by that chief.
But council rules. Procedure.
Council's recommendations on the
Isn't the fire chief and the chief of police under city administrators as staff?
Right, but I don't micromanage their.
No, but you have authority over their policies and procedures.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not writing them and they don't go with my accounts.
But that's what I'm trying to touch on here.
So what if you get a city administrator and it's not too good, but you want to help them get better? Is you trying to cover it with this section?
No, I'm trying to I'm trying to address, that not every city administrator been hired, maintains a sense of collaboration with the departments that the city administrator is overseeing. Some city administrators, when hired, come in with a feather in their cap and something to prove, and toss out policies that they have the authority to toss out and create ruckus where there is absolutely no compelling need to do so.
All of
So
that
you're
coming
looking
out
at
like
this CA that comes in and goes rogue a bit and says, I don't like those, so we're gonna do something, do it totally different. And so what is the recourse when that happens? If it's a significant thing, then there is going to be recourse from the individuals whom it impacts. And that recourse is either through human resources or directly to the council.
Was that why satisfaction of the council was in there in the first place? Was there something in the industry?
Yes. I don't think so, but I don't need to set that.
I think it's just a kind of another way of repeating the fact that the council has to approve everything.
No.
It's just another, yeah. Maybe they got tired of using the words, by the majority of the council, or if the council approves, or, whatever.
But some of the policies don't need to be checked out with the council.
Right.
Some of the policies, James does have the authority to just change them.
So like the fire department and then the police department, let them just go and say, yeah, I don't agree with that. We're gonna do it this way from now on.
Or reorganize the front staff, or say, well, I believe this is a more efficient way to do it, I'm going to reorganize the front staff.
The hours of city hall,
Hours at City Hall.
I think all those things are covered under something else that we're gonna get to though. But I see what you're saying, so I'm wondering if the question should be, should we include policies in this thing? Cover
policies.
Maintenance of previous policy. Until changes can be negotiated with affected parties.
another way to solve that.
Was it?
From working in employment law, that's the way employers screw over their employees. Right? They say, look at our policy manual, it's 500 friggin' pages. And we looked through it and you violated 6 of them. Like, you're supposed to ask 2 supervisors permission, but you only asked 1. So that's violation 1. Violation 2 is stupid little ticky-tack stuff. Which is why I don't like. Follow the law, yes. Follow the ordinances, resolutions, yes. But if you just say all policies, I think it's way too broad.
Maybe it would be better to just consider having, or that the council would consider having an ordinance or a resolution that delegates that a policy can't just be changed without telling council.
But I would certainly hope it could be, it's part of the administrator's job. I'm not after council approval, I'm after a reasonable pace of change.
That could jam up council a lot, and some of the criticism I get is that I bring too much stuff to council for approval. People say, oh, you technically you can do that on your own. That's not my leadership style. I like to let council know what's going on and get approval.
But that's a leadership style, and so that's a good point, because the next city administrator, whose leadership style is a little more conservative, and says, well, I recognize that these are my duties and responsibilities, I can act upon these, and these are duties and responsibilities that I must seek council approval for, and see a bigger delineation in it. So then how does that change affect the whole function of the city and the administration of ordinances or resolutions? I don't believe it does. I think it affects the tone and the tenor of the city as an organization and those that work in it, and then can affect, of course, outside of that. But I think as when you have and this is one of the things for the charter, it doesn't put in every iota, but when you hire a new city administrator, it is the city council's responsibility to, one, become acquainted with that city administrator, talk to the employees of that city administrator, listen, and be available for anyone who may have input in that first probationary period, because you are going to have to do a review on that city administrator and his performances. So then that becomes the net that catches that, I would hope.
Yeah, because that's initiated with faith in the character of the person they hired.
That's a good word. That's a good word. It's a good way to say it.
And if you get somebody that's egotistical and comes in with the belt buckle up over the
Oh, we'll use it. However,
that's easy to hide.
that's true. It is.
Easy to hide.
Right, and devil's advocate when we're talking about policies, and there might be a policy that's in place by the current city administrator, and then that person vacates and one comes in, and maybe that policy is terrible, it's like, oh, it's whatever, it's, you know, everybody gets a shortened lunch on Tuesdays, like, that's a terrible policy, you know, like, maybe the new city administrator wants to come in and says, guess what, you have no lunch back. But we want the hours. So we need that shorter lunch, so we can get paid more money.
Well, and that's where, I would hate to see that sort of thing brought back to council.
Right, yeah.
If there's a way to make it paced. That, you know, so that there's a certain pace to changing them.
So like a 90-day policy for policy change,
Um,
kind of maybe?
no, I mean, like if everyone has their lunch shortened in the administrative, yeah, that actually something that, is there a way to authorize council to, specifically by, in the charter, to authorize the council to require, existing administrative policies to stand for a specified period, after a new administrator's hiring, unless those policies are negotiated with the affected parties.
I would assume that there would be a way to, but I would offer that what this discussion is minutiae.
Okay.
And that it's beyond, not beyond the scope, but the charter is specifically written to give guidance and to be as clear as possible, but not to dictate every particular thing. And I think that you start writing that into a charter, I think you start becoming too. Everyone.
Meticulous.
Yeah. I'm concerned you went that deep.
I would point out that in G below this, it says organize and reorganize the departmental structure of city government, so. It kind of sounds like what you're talking about might fall under that more so than the one that we're
Yes,
on.
I'll see that.
Because that would also include organize and reorganize the practice structure of the city government with councils. Either approval or being aware. James, your style would be if you were going to organize and reorganize city departments, you would do that. Think it through, and then you would go to council and say, this is what I'm intending on doing, and this is why. This is the result I hope to have happen because of that. That would be your style. It would not necessarily be the style of every city administrator who came in, because this provision says that he or she can do it without informing us.
Satisfaction of the council.
I don't think they need council's approval, but I do think they need council's blessing. Is it council? Awareness, I think awareness is the word.
But the council can fire the city administrator.
Yes,
So they could come in and make all the changes they want, and we could say, hey, we don't like that.
Right.
Either slow your roll or you're gonna roll out the door.
And that's where I get back to the big thing, because that is potentially a massive cost to the city.
yeah.
And another 6-month pro tem maybe.
And, yeah, if people's positions are eliminated in that restructuring, if there's labor law issues with how that was carried out, so, but you're right, so my question should be under G.
So when you share, tell me.
We'll start over.
All right, E.
The,
E.
Yeah, and then I liked adding the word, I wonder if we should add the word obligations in there somewhere.
Yes. Privileges and obligations.
Yeah, because it's got privileges in there, but it doesn't have obligations.
What are let me back up a little bit. What are privileges granted by the city?
Like, I don't know, use of a city vehicle.
Or giving. A key to the mayor. That's the only mayor.
No term, but that's.
But that is a good question. What are the privileges?
So, and see that all terms, so, and then once again, we're in the weeds again with what you just talked about is, so you have given me the privilege of a key to the Warming Center. Right?
Right.
If the next person comes in and says, you can't have that privilege, and I say, well, it's a privilege that was given to me by the city. By the city administrator. City administrator will say, no, it was given by the city administrator, and I'll say, well, not according to the charter, it was given by the city.
That's a perfect example.
yeah.
Perfect.
So you're not getting the key.
But we know you just like to hang out at Green Waters and that's the only thing to do extra dinner and have a private seat. Yes. Because it's so comfortable.
We know you're gonna make copies and sell them on the city.
So what's the way of asking a question about that? It would, I like what you're saying.
Right,
On that one, I think what James said is, should we add obligations
To that list.
to that list?
okay. And remove privileges?
Oh, I don't think that was what we.
No, I think it was just an obligation.
Add obligation.
I was concerned about privileges, because I think privileges are just, are subjective.
Well, they're granted by the city, so even if the city administrator did it, it becomes something the city did.
What if the city administrator granted somebody a privilege that was not dangerous? It was dangerous, that was not good. I mean, what if they said, yeah, it's okay, you know, this homeless person always is back here. And I have allowed them to come in and sleep. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not the Warming Center, but, and just you.
Or just leave it in City Hall.
Or just keep in City Hall, because that's a good thing to do. That's a privilege, you would bring that individual, and as a city administrator, it becomes a city privilege. Right, doesn't it? I mean, I think it could be extrapolated that far.
So the question is, what really defines privileges that are granted?
I think
And obligations, because I don't understand either one of those two statements.
Or to put in city, because is it the city based on council, or is it city based on James being able to do that, or
Or a mature funding.
Well, also, the sentence starts with the word, see that all terms of the franchises, leases, contracts, permits, privileges, and
All
obligations,
terms of leases, all terms of arrangements, all terms of permits, all terms of privileges.
all terms of obligation. And so do those things have terms?
Yes.
No. Not a privilege or an obligation, but a permit would, a contract would, a lease would.
Which may by rule.
So we could consider taking out the words terms of.
Take out the words and privileges, right, by the city of, well, by the city. I mean, you can't see that something is done if you, and be able to objectively, evaluate someone on terms that are undefined and not able to be seen.
Because who authorizes that key to go to the Warren Center? Or does that mean that somebody from the city would have to go and unlock it if they're not privileged for you to have it and be trusted?
So it's a reasonable privilege, and I'm sure there are other privileges that we could probably come up with that happen on a routine basis. But does that fall under terms?
Well, maybe this is suggesting that things like privileges should have terms. In other words, maybe if we decide that the CA decides to give you a key to the Warming Center, maybe there should be a documentation that says.
Did you sign my signature that signs the key?
They do it with the Esther dollars.
And the terms signed in that document that says, this is the Warming Center key, this has been issued to so and so for the dates of however long.
So a policy.
But when I had the key for the WAC, I had to fill out a form that made it known that I was the person holding a key to the WAC.
Therefore, you became responsible for any damages caused by.
Yeah.
Well, you know, only
That would
if
be
my
possible.
in the storage room brought mice, but they don't know where they're there.
Now we know,
Yeah, so, but
but that was a term, it was a term that someone could look at and go, okay, are they being fulfilled?
So James, do you think obligations could have terms?
Not really. Yeah, I mean, the word terms of. Doesn't need to be in there if you're gonna have all of these things in there.
So if we leave obligations and
Privileges. Now.
privileges in, we should take out terms.
Yeah.
If we need terms in, we should take out privileges and obligations.
Or just obligations, because privileges, we probably should have terms. If we're gonna give somebody the privilege of using the spare unmarked police car to go run down to Eugene and pick up a bunch of supplies or something.
for me,
Yeah,
to go rely on animal abusers, that would be the same kind of thing. If I were asking the city, hey, can I use your unmarked police car? Because there's somebody that's abusing an animal and I'm gonna go spy on them, that's a privilege, right? I don't know.
There are so many things. Like,
Wow. You know, it's something that needs terms and, okay, well, but you can't use it to get out of the car and spy in their window. That would be a term. You know, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to put the gas in that you use, those are the do, right?
Can't run over the abuser.
Right?
Run out of things, don't you?
No, when it comes to animal, the passion just has no limit. There's no terms.
Okay, so we have the questions down, right?
What do we have so far?
Hold on, this is joke typing here. I'm ready to finish.
What are privileges? What's the definition of obligations? Do we need the word terms in there?
So adding the word obligations to this list and
Do we need that semicolon?
And not as the last word.
Oh, it's
Because
good.
we read it, obligations granted by the city, that doesn't sound real pleasant.
So what we have here is remove the semicolon. What would be gained or lost by adding the word obligations to this list and or specifying that all franchises, leases, contracts, permits, and privileges granted by the city have terms, and that those terms are fulfilled. So really, the questions are, oh, do we have to have terms? And what are obligations and privileges?
Perfect.
Okay, so did you get to read one yet? Or was that one yours?
James jumped in. The administrator shall appoint, discipline, and remove appointed personnel. Except appointees of the mayor.
Here's my first question is. If we added the word supervise. To that list, so for instance, appoint, supervise, discipline, and blah, blah, blah. Could we then get rid of that? Yeah, that's.
Yeah, basically combine those two sentences.
Yeah, could Ian be combined?
Should, I'm sorry.
No worries.
How do I get back to? Or back there? Thank you.
He's all kinds of looking with you.
And-
It's typing.
I have another question if you're ready. Should we consider removing the word mayor? Leaving it just appointees of the council. And I don't think the mayor can appoint anyone on their own.
The challenge specifically says they appoint and council approves, so we already have that language there.
Oh, well, once they're approved, they're appointees of the council, but they're not. The mayor's appointees, I guess it's kind of what I'm
So I
saying.
switch.
But the mayor still has a vote now.
Like the mayor can't just. Well,
Mayor can't appoint the CA by. By the mayor, that.
right, well, basically, the only appointees that we have, the way the charter is written is CA, the judge. And the recorder, but we've already talked about that one. But anyways, it says. The city administrator shall. Appoint, discipline, supervise, or remove appointed personnel. Except appointees of the mayor or council.
So
So how is, there is no such thing.
appointed or hired,
We can't think of any.
people that the city administrator at some points hired. The ones that are under their supervision, right?
Sorry, what?
So the word appointed. Personnel is basically whoever James has hired or is.
Yeah.
A hired person that he supervises. So
Yeah.
appointed is confusing to me, but as a hire, I understand what it says.
And that's how requiring this was appoint, even though they didn't use the word hire. They used the word appoint, so that's a repeat of this. So I think you're exactly right, is appoint or hire, you can only do employed by the city people. Because the council and mayor doesn't employ anybody. The employee, the only person we employ is the city administrator.
And the
Well, the
judge.
judge and employee, the judge is paid,
Oh, that's true. But they're appointee.
and the city recorder's paid.
And the city, well, yeah, but
But they're hired, not appointed, right?
they're hired.
Well, that's gonna be a conversation
How
coming
will
up.
we get there?
Yeah.
That's kind of, that's,
Really happens.
oh, Lord.
So I guess the question could be. Could we replace appointed personnel with city staff? We wanted to. Make the language simpler.
I love that.
And reason.
Yeah, and then you need to accept appointees of the mayor or council, because we are obviously. That's a whole other section,
They should just focus on the city administrator.
right?
Point, supervise, discipline, and remove.
Hire.
city staff.
Mhm.
So we have a question in there.
Yeah, should we change it to city staff?
That's
Two
what I was there for a long time. Do we have to have to- It's-
Well, we try consistent.
So it's teamwork.
That's right.
All right,
No, we made, supervise and control the administrators, oh, we've done that, didn't we just?
No, I just mentioned that we could take that word out,
Combine it with E, he said.
but it hasn't been.
Because you threw supervise up in E.
So the question on F would be, can we combine this with E?
I don't like being controlling, either. I don't think we need it for that.
Yeah.
Some of them I can't control.
Let's say that out. And then we'll go to G, organize and reorganize the departmental structure of city government.
Do we need the words and reorganize?
Because if it's not working, you gotta reorganize it. You organize it one way, then you like.
Well, a prior administration organized it a certain way, and you would be reorganized.
I think furthers the idea that we don't need to recreate the wheel every time we get a new city administrator. We just need to keep the wheel rolling, perhaps the different pace or different.
So could it read, accept and reorganize, except or reorganize the department?
Say it again.
Accept or reorganize the departmental structure of city government. Because as Don stated, you come in, it's organized, so you can either leave it as is, or
Reorganize it after you've already accepted it and decided 2 years into it that it should be reorganized a different way because of other matters. So I think it's pretty clear the way it is.
well, the administrator, it's saying that the administrator must organize and reorganize.
Oh,
It's their job.
It's their job to organize and reorganize the departmental
it's
structure.
not telling them they have to go.
It is. It's what it is.
Yeah.
Your must.
If we suggest, if we do change that shall to must throughout the document, that's what it would be saying.
So then then what we need to do is look at all of the ones we looked at to make sure that must is the right word. I mean, some of these actually may be may. As opposed to must or shall. Well, shall is a word no one uses, and every time we use it in council, we have people who jump up and go, oh,
Right, so let's look at that briefly. 6A, would that be must or may? Must, yes,
Yes.
must attend all council. Okay, 6B, must or may?
must.
Must. 6C, must or may?
Must.
6D, must or may?
Must.
6E, must or may?
Must.
6F, must or may?
It's heard after.
that is combined in with E, so, yeah.
Maybe back with must.
Keep that with must.
And then we would have may for G. Yes,
Yeah, that's interesting, because looking at it that way, then if we go through the others that are remaining, we should look at that and it perhaps. I don't know.
Perhaps have one section that says the administrator must, and then another section that says the administrator may.
You just put the administrator, stop with that, and put must in front of all the ones that are must and may in front of all the ones.
Yeah, that's not, that's another question, absolutely. So we need to.
Must we do this or may we do this?
To the word organize, be. Like, keep it organized. Because hopefully it was kind of organized.
Well, it could be if you're starting something new, you would organize that with a new program for housing homeless people, or, who knows? A new project could be organized. they would be organized.
Could you use the word maintain for both words? Yeah, that's kind of what I would think.
All right, just keep it up with it, whether that's organizing or reorganizing, it's your job to keep up with it. And not just. Put it off.
So kind of keeping, you better keep us organized.
Coordinate.
Yeah, coordinates another.
I guess the question
Maintain,
then you have to reanimate things. Who are you coordinating?
maintain and reorganize as needed or something like that. Or back to.
I think what it makes
Part.
laying out the duties and responsibilities, so, you know. It's responsible for the organization and reorganization as needed.
Maybe that's what we need to do as needed.
As needed.
As needed. See, that's what I'm saying. So he determines when it is as needed. Right.
That's a job.
Yeah. Okay.
One, two. H, prepare and train, change, you wanna read that one?
Sure. Prepare and transmit to the council an annual city budget. My question is. Should we specify that and call it a proposed annual city budget?
I have that we cross that out, but draft, yeah.
I thought this.
I actually,
Finance director did that.
well,
No,
you know, according to the way this was written for years, I think we always had city administrator actually preparing the budget. But what I've learned more recently in state budget training, that the law is that we have to have, which I think is also delineated here or in another rule somewhere, we have to have a budget officer. And in here somewhere it says that the CA is the budget officer, right? But
Well,
But-
it's, you know, that it is.
CA doesn't have to prepare it, they said, that typically a CA assigns that duty to a finance director and oversees it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the note I have on here, oversee budget law requirements for input in preparation.
Yeah,
Budget officer.
my question is, if you look at that and you say oversee as opposed to prepare. It is the city administrator's job to see that it is prepared. If he chooses to prepare it himself with the obvious input of his finance director, police, fire, all the departments, that's how he'll do it. If he chooses, because of the way his manpower and time is, to delegate that to the city finance director, he can do that. But it is his responsibility to present it to council, and he presents a budget. It's not approved, and it is not a final budget, and it's not a draft. It's not, it is not proposed, it's a proposed budget. There's a difference between the two, and it's a proposal to council and the budget committee that says this is what I am proposing and why. So I think we need to be really careful about it. Not saying this is a cooperative draft, it's not, it's a proposal.
Right, so that is the first question, is that do we want to get specific and call it the proposed annual city budget?
Okay.
But, you know, by reading H, and this is the way I interpreted this when I read this, is that I had no choice, I had to be the budget officer. Because in the charter, it says, city administrator must prepare and transmit. And that's what the budget officer does, so. Even though the League of Oregon Cities, everybody else said that the budget officer should probably be the finance director. They know the budget the best. In Oak Ridge, it has The budget officer has to be the CA because of this.
Yeah, but in the long run, it really doesn't make any difference. That's the problem here, is that we can get tied down into the language, and we can change it so it is more, it is a broader, but there is, I mean, we're a small city, we recognize we probably have never had the bandwidth. Well, we did, somewhat we did, but never had the bandwidth to have a finance director whose job was broad enough and wasn't encumbered by so many other responsibilities too, to be able to prepare a budget without cooperation and guidance from the city administrator. I mean, every city administrator that I've talked to here in Oak Ridge, when it comes to budget time, uses everybody as a resource. I mean, and he just is pulling it all together. This is what I think, and this is how you do it. This is what your department needs, what does it need, okay? This is what I'm gonna propose. So, I think regardless of what the League of Oregon Cities can say or do or whatever, the bottom line is in a small community like this, they're both gonna be doing it. Everybody's gonna be doing it.
Well, what he's pointing out is the way that this is written right now, this charter means he is required to be the budget officer, and by definition, a budget officer prepares the budget. So in other words, it's kind of obligating him.
But it doesn't preclude that he can delegate that responsibility. He is the city administrator. As an executive in the city, he can delegate responsibilities, and that would be just fine. It doesn't mean, I think we kind of can get crazy with that.
He can delegate responsibilities, but can he delegate offices?
I can't delegate budget officer.
And when you go to sign it as budget officer, you will sign it as the budget officer. That doesn't mean that other people haven't participated in the preparation of your budget.
But does it really matter what
I-
method he uses, as long as he's making sure it's done?
He's the final say, therefore, he's the budget officer, his John Henry's going on it.
Should say oversee instead of prepare.
If there's an error in any of the information that each department provides to the city administrator in proposal of that and preparation of that budget, then he's on the line for it being in error.
Absolutely. So he has to double check things.
If I get it, never mind.
Yeah, I know.
Right, you have to have,
Right,
right,
I
you
agree.
have the time in it to be able to go through that, to make sure that there's no errors and things that need to be addressed and recalculated.
Well, but that's the responsibility of an executive.
I'm just waiting, can I go on? Okay, I think that the goal with this one. The goal. Having this in here is to ensure that the city gets a budget every year. That it's not being. Not done.
Right.
So, if somehow,
So here's what we currently have in the notes. We have two questions. Number one is the intention of this language to allow the city administrator to oversee any staff that does this? For instance, see that an annual city budget is prepared and proposed to the council. Currently, the charter seems to apply to the city administrator as the budget officer instead of a finance minister being budget officer. And the second question we have is the intention of this language to mean draft budget or proposed budget?
Can you throw a timeline in there when it should be done by?
well, there's really no such thing as a draft budget. It's either proposed or approved.
But
And does the state,
Yeah.
the draft budget when it's sitting on the CA's desk and he's got 2 or 3 other draft budgets and he's.
And he hasn't proposed it yet.
Hasn't proposed.
but it's proposed, and I will release that version to the public.
Okay.
Note with public notice. And then legally they propose, budget, and then after budget committee passes it.
And
And
adopted.
approved or not.
No, approved.
Approved.
Correct.
Approved. And once city council passes it.
It's adopted.
Yes, it's.
But I still want to keep saying that we start too late.
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Not for the chart.
Not for the charter, is not anywhere in here. Yeah.
Now, budget law,
We actually
budget
started,
law that we can't set any laws regarding the budget. It's set by the state board.
You can't start earlier than.
no, we should start, and we actually started.
That's all I'm talking.
We started at least 2 weeks earlier than what League Board of Cities and stuff suggest. It's just. Well,
Yeah,
Well, who's on H? I mean, no, are we done with H?
Yes.
Yeah, we need a special, okay, so we're on,
Supervised city contracts.
isn't that the same as D?
that's what I have in my notes, CD.
So you combine
See it.
The lead I
the
is. Would be my,
questions, should we delete I?
because it's the same as D.
It's on deck.
All right, that's I. Any other questions on I? Okay, J,
Whoever.
Sorry.
Oh, me?
Jumped in.
Supervise operation of all city-owned public utilities and property. You. Yeah, and I already have that crossed off, so.
In a semicolon and.
Yes.
Oh, you can famous line at the bottom of every job description.
And other duties are just fine.
Supervise operations of all city owned public facilities and properties.
That means you could let me have that impound building for a Saturday.
That's
Yeah.
not.
But we're gonna talk
I'm just fishing. I know you.
You're a good fisher. A woman.
all right, any questions on J? Extend term.
It's pretty clear. Supervise operation doesn't say he's able to sell or give away, so.
Think don't worry, he's not gonna sell the farm.
Okay, so I think, I don't have any questions.
Is there something there that's, James, that you do oversee that's not included in either city public utilities or city owned properties?
That's a good
You mean like renting out city buildings?
No, that,
It's in the operation, but I'm not.
But that's city owned property.
Property.
Yeah, can you question again?
sure, is there anything else that you supervise the operation of that would not be encompassed in city owned public utilities or city owned properties?
Equipment,
That's property.
Property.
Yeah.
maybe, but there's real property. In real estate, when there's property, so.
Your belongings. Before we go too far down this road. I'd like to ask the question if even this doesn't specifically refer to public utilities. This is an operation of all city-owned public utilities and property, public utilities properties. I mean, I think that's what it's specifically talking about is it's his duty to make sure that city-owned utilities and the properties that are owned that are operating with the city-owned utilities are managed,
Right.
but nothing else. I mean, it's not, it doesn't mean he isn't responsible for other things, but this is specific.
That'd be like green waters and things like that.
No, it means like our sewer plants,
Right.
our right of ways for all of our water management, our wells.
And that can be problematic because I am not qualified.
Your supervisor though, so you're making sure somebody's doing it.
Right, but
Sure you get the right person hired for the job.
sure, but I don't, you have to be certified to run the water treatment center.
But you
So
supervise,
my operation. Well, that's what the water treatment center operator.
but they report to you, you are the supervisor.
You're their boss.
You're, no, I see your point, James, you're governing that, but you are not managing it. And supervising operations is management and not governance.
Yeah,
Supervising again, supervising.
Supervising operations is management. And James's responsibility there is governance, not management.
Okay, so I could argue that the city councils is the governance, business supervision.
But isn't that covered in, I supervise all employees?
Yeah.
So I supervise. We already have that in there, that I supervise.
So is there a different word other than supervise that you would, like you would put for that? I don't think it's governance.
It's supervising operations.
Okay.
That is almost by definition management.
Okay.
That's what management means. So what that is not a synonym for, as far as I can tell, is set parameters for. And so set parameters for how city-owned public utilities and property are operated. And ensure that the operation happens within parameters. That's what we do.
I'm thinking he manages the people. And
Which
that
is,
certified person is responsible for the operation. Operational duties.
Then you have other cases where you are a manager or something, you could be a manager, you can be a manager of a call center. And you are managing the flow of what happens, the distribution of the work, you're making sure that deadlines are met. But you aren't necessarily writing the script for the.
But that's supervising operations.
And so that's supervising, right?
Right, that's management.
right, yeah, so why doesn't it say that I also supervise operations of the fire department, supervise operations of the police department? If that was.
Because it's a public utility, well,
There's city owned public entities, the fire department and the
Yeah.
police department, right?
You also have
So
to be
the
careful.
public works is a city owned operation. Because if there was an issue with the water sewer plant and it was something that public works. Or the designated in charge individual had to go outside of the city to remedy. Then he would be, I think, that supervisor for that. Contacting additional, okay.
I think you have to be careful though about that, because, you know, if you say that this language isn't appropriate, it supervises. Gosh, I am really tired. I think my lawnmower just hit my head. So what I'm trying to say is that we have certified technicians who are certified to be able to run our sewer and our water.
Required by law?
And required by law, they have to be whatever, signed with our life and all that stuff. If you are in our charter, their supervisor, and we take that away and change it somehow, does that elevate their status into something else? And are we in trouble with human resources? Now, I'm not trying to say that they shouldn't be, I'm just saying there may be a hierarchy here that we're sticking our finger in.
But that's something council investigates, right? If we ask that question.
I don't know, I'm just saying, we need to be careful. I mean, I know that in times that I have worked, that if you get appointed as a supervisor, then that either lifts you or demotes somebody else. So the language needs to be careful. We just need to be careful.
The attaches liability, James, is
Big.
big for you right now.
Right.
This.
It's like, I need to go to do 2 years of school to figure out how to. Run a water treatment center.
I don't think that's what this is saying,
I
no,
don't think so.
no, absolutely not. I mean, you don't know how to run, do you know how to run the backhoes? Do you know how to do those? No. Do you know how to take care of the pumps as well? No. I mean, you're very qualified doing it.
Well, right.
But you are capable of finding the people who will assist the people under you in that position that have that responsibility.
But for seeing,
Point, supervise, discipline, or remove.
is overseeing a better word? Something like that, so making sure that somebody's doing.
I see where James is going, is why is it even in there? He's already, I don't know, doing it above, disciplining, removing, and managing, supervising city staff.
Yeah, because what, because
Close the
Because the
utility.
charter's micromanaging the city.
No.
Charter, like adding more stuff to it.
yeah, we might as well add fire department, police department. in that place.
Administrative.
I think the difference is that this is, we're talking about the public utilities. And the land that they own, there is a very specific. Specific rules about cities and their public utilities, and what they can and cannot do. So, for example, we cannot mix money with public utilities, it has to be dedicated to that by state law. There are some specifics, so I think what it's addressing is this specific thing about the public utilities. I think it's important that it is in there.
And just take out semicolon and add.
Either that or. Because if it isn't in there, who's doing it? And could we then hire an individual whose job it is to be the public utilities guru?
Some cities do that.
And some cities do that.
They lost their guy that's certified, they have to subcontract, someone who is certified to run
Well,
the
who
waterway.
is this? Group of people or whatever that you would be supervising?
Public Works.
Okay, so can you just say something like, you're in charge of making sure the public works is doing their job?
Yeah, and I think it's in E. Point supervisor is gonna remove all those names.
Well, then maybe you should add. The sections that you would be responsible for making sure those things happen, like the fire department, police department, whatever. Up there.
And what is into what you're saying though?
Yeah, so you think it should be separate from the police and the fire and all that?
Especially if it has its own legislative aspect, right?
Well, I don't know if legislative is the word, but there are rules governing public utilities.
Well, can you use your same language up on E, appoint, discipline, and remove?
So what is the advantage to combining it all rather than slaying it out separately? One of the things that we're doing as we go through this is to make sure that in the future, when people have questions, they don't read that general statement and go, well, what about the public water works?
Right.
Right.
But can you put the same verbiage that's in E in front of, which one was it, J? Like supervise, or was it? E? Appoint, discipline, and remove as needed. To make sure there's smooth operation of all city-owned public utilities.
We could, but you're just adding wrong language than you need. And then you're supervising the operations of a public utility that is owned by the city. Right, that's what you're doing. You're making sure that it's. There's the CEO of it.
But you're trying to take away the managerial aspect of it?
Yeah, CEO is a great example. I mean,
Because they don't have to know everything about anything or anything, they just
but
appear.
a CEO and a COO are two different positions.
Right.
And this is operations. You are right, the COO. And that's not where.
The problem is.
We don't have that other level. That's why our city administrator does some things. That's why our city charter is flexible enough to see that. But I just feel that it's really important that we look into
Yeah, but some,
what other language, other charters have and is recommended about public utilities. I don't know.
I was worried, as Matt says, this is requiring me to supervise the operation. So someone could say, I'm derelict in my duty now because I've only been at the water treatment center once. So how can I be supervising operations if I'm not
But
there
you're
supervising
you
operations?
supervise the operations by standing on the corridor or looking over the edges. Cool, you supervise the operations by checking in with your employees who know what's happening.
That's the first
That's your representation, but what he's saying is that any other citizen could read this and say, hey, James has only ever been out there once, how could he possibly be supervising that area?
I can.
The
It's not,
verbiage match what you're saying, is what we need.
no, I don't, I think the verbiage sounds great, the way it is, and I think you're. I wouldn't say you're being too picky at all, because I understand where you're coming from, totally. I think it's important that you know what you're going to be held accountable for and what you're not going to be held accountable. Changing the language in any manner that we talk about does not remove your accountability.
Supervised operation of all city owned public utilities and property is reasonably letting you know that you are in touch base with the individuals that actually work within these.
Yeah, but everything's much space with their supervisor.
But then what supervision is.
Right, to make everything.
But operation is the key word here. It sounds like
Supervision of all.
based on definitions. Right now, so maybe question would be. How could we reword this to clarify?
Supervision, responsibility,
He's supervising
personnel, knowledge.
the qualified staff that run our utilities.
Would the staff come to you in public works if there was an issue that was beyond what their teams could handle? More than likely,
Sure, but I hope they wouldn't.
they may even have the resources for you to contact.
All right,
No,
so
but, yeah.
here's what I have for question right now. In addition to can the and be deleted from this, what are examples from other charters concerning public works so that it's clear the city administrator supervises quality staff who manage the operations of public works? Does the Lake Oregon cities have recommendations?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Related to this question. When Kathy said. That this is a reference to public utilities and property, that property being the property, utility property.
Yeah.
I think this warrants possibly another section. Also supervise operation of city owned real property, including parks, because there's,
The WAP and was it
the parks, slasher, yeah, I think
That's
it's.
on the question.
So how can we specify that the property under this section refers to public works property
I think adding.
and
Public.
and is an additional subsection necessary?
So I cheated a little bit. I was looking at the Oregon cities. And they have reduced that little thing about to administer city utilities and property.
I like it.
Yeah, the minister is
Like it.
Yeah.
not.
We should have looked at the other one.
Administer
And property.
Yeah, we changed it too. Keeping it simple.
Yeah, because that would include pipes, belts, backhoes, parks, swings. Gates,
All that.
fences.
nature.
Yeah.
All right. Great, we have one more under number 6. We can, call it an evening.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Perform other duties as the council prescribes consistently with this charter.
So should be consistent. I thought that, I think catch-alls are important to have.
Could we also just remove? Prescribes consistently with this charter because. Or not prescribes, but just perform other duties as the council prescribes. Because we are not prescribing any other duties consistently with this charter.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so the lead says perform other duties as directed by the council.
There you go.
Can I add one question to this section?
Yes.
I think there should be a section, another subsection that says something like, see that state and federal laws in the city charter are followed.
We mentioned that. I have a note in the sidebar. Last time we talked about that obligation, get budget process in all state and federal laws.
That's not, in other words, you don't think that's covered anywhere else in the charter?
Not specific to the city administrator. I mean,
So,
you could say obligation
give
covers.
me an example. What that would be. Maybe I mean, that's, I mean.
Well,
here.
Like it'd be my responsibility to review the charter, to know the charter fairly well. So when something comes up in council, I can say, I read the charter, and it's my obligation to inform council that what you're doing right now is totally against the charter.
Right.
Or
Actually, somewhere, I think from somewhere, it has. You listed as the parliamentarian, would
Yeah.
cover that.
Which is what that would cover. Well.
Is that the rules or here?
I think.
Probably council rules.
I don't know, so, but I think you're talking about. Because at one point Susie was designated as a parliamentarian. And, and so we.
But we doesn't have council rules then either.
Well, I know that, what I'm saying is that we have had parliamentarians in the past, but it's always, it was always appointed by the. City administrator, I mean, not appointed, but it was designated this parliamentarian. Which I kind of thought was funny, because I didn't like that, but.
Parliamentarian. Parliamentarian.
So for K, I have a question of, can consistently with this charter be removed, League Oregon cities suggest perform other duties as directed by the council. And then, as an additional subsection, is it worthwhile to add to the city administrator's duties? See that state and federal laws and the city charter are followed. Did I get that, John?
Started with the right letter.
I did.
You're good.
All right. Wonderful job, folks. Woo-hoo. Yay.
I just want to add one thing in here that is at the very bottom of the League of Oregon Cities section of city administrator. Which I don't think we address, it says delegate duties, but remain responsible for actions of all subordinates. Does that say anything further than we've already?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so like,
It says the responsibility part.
so if somebody goes out, does some drunk driving. My fault. For letting them.
Well, what's that?
Only if they're, only if they're doing it.
Responsibility what they do out there.
Well, I just.
Wow, you better go start checking.
Robbers.
That's because, we very frequently, we know that when you're in positions of in leadership, or whatever it is, the buck stops there at some point, or whatever it is you are in authority over. See, that's all there is, I appreciate it. That's not. Here I heard it.
I think what you're saying kind of means that it falls as his responsibility to ensure that the staff are doing their jobs, because if like, let's just say we had no one picking up minutes, even we can't go to Jackie and say, or to the city recorder and say, minutes need to be typed up, but we certainly can say, yes, you're not managing, you're not making sure this job is getting done.
And on the positive side, it specifically says that in your job to delegate duties. I mean, that is okay, because I don't want someone to be James and saying, like our example was. The water plant, you've never been there, blah, blah, blah. Well, I have delegated those duties. And I am supervising or managing or whatever you said.
Yeah.
It protects you on both sides.
Maybe we could, that could something like delegation could get thrown into the whole appointment, discipline, removal, delegate.
Alright, so I have, as a final question, would it benefit us to add language that the league or Oregon cities suggest?
You didn't make.
Not really excited.
Delegate duties but remain responsible for acting on subordinates. And I have your question, James, so to include actions of subordinates, not ours.
Really, children are gonna catch everything you say that's wrong.
It's getting started.
Yeah, they,